I think this couple here don't need to be introduced. I introduce them, I love them both. If you're ever around them and where they go, it's about the kingdom. And that's what the best thing I think you can say about this hotel. And I always tell everybody, Mesa was one of my favorites. And I do, I love Mesa to death. This couple, I just know what they do behind the scenes. Never want to take the glory for anything, but it's all about furthering the kingdom. I really appreciate that. Phil, it's all yours. You take what time you need to, okay?
It's an honor tonight to be here at Young at Heart. I see a few faces missing that have gone on to glory, and I'm thankful that we have that promise too, don't we?
Amen.
I'm going to be talking tonight about the greatness of God.
Yes.
The greatness of God, His omnipotence. I always have problems with that. I can get it out just a minute. Omnipotence. His unlimited power.
That's right. No limit on God.
Is there something in particular that you think of when you see that reminds you of His greatness? Like, as an example, when I'm on the sea or by deep waters, by the ocean, and I see the power in that water, it's so deep. There are things in the deep waters that man has never discovered yet. Scientists are still searching. But I can just sense the power of God in those deep waters.
Yeah.
Now I want you to be thinking, what is something when you look at that reminds you of His greatness? I want you to raise up your hand. I'm going to take a mic. I don't know how long this cord is, but I'm going to take it around if I can.
Thanks. Yeah, well, I've always been interested in space and the vastness of the universe. We can't even count the number of stars out there.
You can't.
But no, and then beyond that, there's cities of these stars called galaxies, and they dance and they swirl, and lots of scientific discoveries. Like, for instance, did you know each star is unique?
Yes.
And that each star sings?
Yeah.
It literally sings.
Sings the glory of God.
Yeah. And they study the stars through sound, and it's amazing. And the colours. I mean, we got the Hubble. You've probably seen the pictures there. And we got probes we sent out just to reach the edge of our solar system, which is only just a little edge.
Yeah.
And they're going at many, many times the speed of sound. And they can't even reach the sky. We have no idea how to even get to the nearest star.
We can
Never
only
mind.
get to 350 million, I think.
Yeah.
That's as far as we
So
can get.
it's vast.
It is.
Fast.
That's a
That's
good
a
one.
good word.
That is it.
Dana,
And you know, the scripture tells us, and I'll be reading it in a minute, that He calls them each by name, each star by name. They are there, and they're not going to hit each other, you know?
He's got them perfectly placed. That's right.
I remember when I was working one day at the seatbelt company, and I was coming down Middlebrook Pike, and it had snowed just a little bit the night before. And the sun was up, because it's around 7 in the morning. And the trees, I passed this is farm over here on Middlebrook, and the trees were just glistening.
That's it.
I mean, just glistening. And I had stopped at a red light, and I looked at this and I said, God, how can anybody doubt that you have not touched this world
That's right.
with the beauty that we have in it and what you have done? I said, there's no artist that could paint a picture like this, because even with when the artist that with the lights and everything, when he painted, but still nothing that majestic could he bring out on canvas that God, with just His breath, made it like that. It was absolutely, I mean, and that sticks in my head, and this has been at least 20 years ago. But I can't get over that one morning. I can't get over it.
It's a photo in your mind. There are times, Trudy, come on up. there are times when we have seen something that just has, that moment, that time has stood out to us, and we have just recognized the glory of God. We're just going to have a couple more here.
Jim and I have had the privilege of being able to travel a lot. And I remember when we went to Alaska, oh my goodness. You could not go down any road, any highway, anywhere in Alaska and not see majestic mountains all around you, and every one snow-capped. And it'd be warm down in the valley and green grass. And you look up and there's those beautiful mountains, and they were so huge. I mean, they were real mountains. And it was really funny because I didn't think I had a small house. When I came home, I thought, oh my gosh, my house is so small. It's because we've been out in God's creation.
Yes.
What was so vast and so magnificent.
Yes.
And then I come inside and I'm thinking, now I know why in Alaska you don't find real fine houses.
No.
People stay
I
outside.
love it.
They do. They hunt, you know, and everything, and they go and they climb mountains.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and anyway, and
The mountains.
the mountains are
The mountains
beautiful,
make you-
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
They are.
Come on, sis. We'll do two more.
She may
You
not
know, we've
get
been
finger.
blessed to
Oh,
be,
talk about
to
God.
make trips to Alaska many times. And I understand, we had them visiting here one time, and I said something about our mountains, and she said, these are mountains? I was offended. But when we were in Alaska, they were really big
They're
mountains.
mountains.
Yes, I just want to tell my experience when and it's just like the Lord just spoke upon me, you know, in my heart to, and I take my vacation by myself, you know, everything I do now, I just do it by myself. You know, it's just something about me that has changed. I try to stay around spiritual people now. I try to go to church more now. It just seems like when God changed you and you know you saved, there's things you're not just gonna go back to. You can't do it. You might try, but he just, you know, just seems like he just pulls you right back, you know. And so I went on my vacation by myself in Myrtle Beach, and I had a timeshare there, and it's amazing how they say that's the best way to, you know, get in the spirit of the Lord is at the beach.
Okay.
And I just went out on the water late in the evening, right before dark. I lay there and I was praying, you know, just me and God in the spirit, you know, and I could feel the spirit there. And I was just thanking Him and praising Him, you know, and people were just shocked that they were like, you by yourself? I said, yep. Just me and my God in the waves. So yeah, so I enjoyed it, you know, and then just coming back to, you know, to the studio with, you know, the, what they call the spa tubs.
Yes.
Just turn out the lights. You can just be romantic by yourself. You know, just be romantic with God, you know. And I was very happy, and I enjoyed myself.
That's right.
More than, at that time, that probably would have had a lot of people around. So I just want to share it with you, and I enjoyed
Just
it. I
a time
really
with
did.
God. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I've got some hands that are coming
They
up.
are.
Come on, sis, I never hear from
I see
you.
Nancy
Come on, yeah.
too. Woo. You guys say
And
two
we're
names.
going to have this our last one, and this is great because I want your minds to be thinking about the greatness of God, okay? We're taking a break from all the cares of this life, all the stuff that's bad. We're just going to be worshiping Him and thinking about how great, how omnipotent He is. You took the long way around, didn't you?
Think of the scenic route.
Well, God, there are many wonderful things in this world. Gorgeous colors, but what God has impressed in my heart, because a lot of times we don't think about that, is the creation that He made, which is you.
Amen. Amen.
That we are fearfully, wonderfully made.
That's right.
We are priceless treasures
Right.
that hold,
We are
earthen
children of
vessels
the
that
King.
hold the Spirit of God within us, and we can walk in His glory goes everywhere we go. And just being around medical lately, because that's not something I ever did, and I see how wonderful we were created and designed, and how everything just works together and
Exactly.
functions.
Yeah.
And when everybody works together, everything flows,
Yeah.
just like in your body, just like in
Yes.
the body of Christ, you know. And God gave me this thing I do. I have this little treasure box, and I have a treasure I carry everywhere I go. And I tell people, you want to see it? And so when I open it, it's them. And, you know, they say, oh, it's a mirror. Oh, it's the heart. I'm like, no, it's you.
It's you.
It's me. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah,
And, you know,
that's good.
that's just what, you know, God
That's good.
loved us so much.
That's right.
You know, so you're all our treasures. Don't
You're
you?
taking my message. Okay, you know, she's talking about that we are his greatest creation, you know, at least the one he loves the most, and I'll get into that toward the end, but you see a new baby. If you've ever been there when a baby was born,
I have
the miracle,
the miracle.
and you look at the newborn baby, and you say, that's God.
It is.
Only God.
Only God.
Plant life. You think about the plant life, how it's just so designed by God. The animal life. Music. Have you ever thought about music? Because it's all mathematics, and you can just constantly make up a new tune.
Yes.
I mean, millions and millions and millions of songs, and yet you can still make new tunes because God created music, didn't He? There's just so many things we can go on and on about, but I want to go a little further here and talk about the importance of, just briefly, of going to the mountains or going to the ocean or going to these places, going to a farm, getting away. It's so important because we are so weighed down with the cares of this life. We need a break sometimes, don't we?
Yes, we do.
When you go to the mountains, you take that time, even though you've got other things you need to do. You go to the mountains or someplace and you can just see His Majesty. Go out at night and look at the stars.
That's right.
You know, and it takes everything, it makes everything in perspective like it should be. I remember Oral Roberts speaking about how he, after a big crusade, that he'd be so overwhelmed and his mind running so fast, that he would go drive in the country and find a farmer, and he'd go up to their door and ask them, do you mind if I just walk around and look at your animals? He said it brought him peace. Just getting back to what God had created and the real things. It's so important that we don't just stay in our little cubicle, but we get out and enjoy His creation.
Amen.
Jack Hayford, how many know who Jack Hayford is? How many have heard the song that he wrote, Majesty?
Oh, yeah.
I was hoping to be able to do that before, but those that know the song, you know how beautiful it is. Worship His Majesty. And he was telling the story about he was in England, and he was driving in the country, and him and his wife were in the car, and they were having the 25th anniversary of Queen Elizabeth, and they had a lot of royalty signs around, and he said as he was driving in the country, and it was just so beautiful and so magnificent, that song came to his spirit. Majesty, worship His Majesty. Unto Jesus, all glory and honor and power. I've got a gift tonight, one of these books that my son has written, and it's entitled Ain't No Grave.
Ain't no grave.
Those that have heard the song Ain't No Grave Gonna Hold My Body Down, my husband's uncle, his dad's brother, wrote that song when he was only, 12 years old? When he was dying with tuberculosis. Now Molly Skaggs has done a new version with new verses that are great.
It's awesome.
But anyway, it's more than the story about Claude Ely. It's the story about the history of Pentecostalism in the Appalachian Mountains. It's very interesting. But anyway, I'm going to give one of those books away tonight to somebody that can answer this question.
Uh-oh. I'll answer it. Half will
Okay.
answer
Where,
it.
where did the term, just a drop in the bucket, originate?
Up in the back.
Raise up your hand.
Can I do the old thing? Well, we're not coming from the old folks.
Somebody raise up their hand if they know the answer. Rosemary.
You know what? It's in the Word. I think it is in the Word from what I remember about God talking about the nations.
Yes, you got it, Rosemary. Very good. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 15. Okay?
You're smart
If you
as a
have your
dog.
Bible, you can turn to Isaiah chapter 40, verse 15. And he says, behold, the nations are as a drop in the bucket.
Wow.
Now, to God, nations are just a drop in the bucket.
Yep.
And the end of that verse says, and are counted as the small dust on the scales. We get so overwhelmed with what's going on in our nation and the nations of the world, where we can get so heavy laden with the politics and all this stuff. But God's got it all in control. To Him, the nations are just a drop in the bucket.
That's right.
Just as dust
Just
on
a blink.
scales. You think about the greatness of God compared to our little minds. He's got it all in control.
Yes, He does.
Always.
Let's look at a few verses earlier, because that was Isaiah 40, 15. I'm going to go to 12, verse 12. Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, measured heaven with a span, and calculated the dust of the earth in a measure, weighed the mountains in scales and the hills in a balance? Verse 13. Who has directed the Spirit of the Lord, or as his counselor has taught him? Verse 14. With whom did he take counsel? And who instructed him and taught him in the path of justice? Who taught him knowledge and showed him the way of understanding? We could go on in chapter 40, but I'm going to skip down to verse 25 and 26. And God is speaking here. To whom then will you liken me? This is God speaking. Or to whom shall I be equal, says the Holy One. Verse 26. Lift up your eyes on high and see who has created these things, who brings out their host by number. He calls them all by name, by the greatness of his might and the strength of his power. Not one is missing. I want to go to Job right now because we're familiar with that. Job was an upright man, and God allowed this to happen to him, that he could be tested. But when that testing is done, after the 4 men have spoken those discouraging words to him, God speaks. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read this chapter 38, and I'll start with verse 4. And now God is speaking. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Or who shut in the sea with doors when it burst forth and issued from the womb? When I made the clouds in its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band? When I fixed my limit for it and I said, and set bars and doors, when I said, and I want to just do an insert here. And this is what I said, what I felt like the Lord said to me about my cancer. God is saying, when I said, this far you may come, but no farther.
That's right.
And here your proud waves must stop. Have you commanded the morning since your days began and caused the dawn to know and play its place? That it might take hold of the ends of the earth and the wicked be shaken out of it. It takes on form like clay under a seal and stands out like a garment. From the wicked their light is withheld, and the upraised arm is broken. Have you entered the springs of the sea, or have you walked in the search of the depths? Have the gates of death been revealed to you, or have you seen the doors of the shadow of death? Have you comprehended the breadth of the earth? Tell me if you know all this. Where is the way to the dwelling of light? And darkness, where is its place? That you may take it to its territory, that you may know the path to its home. Do you know it? Because you were born then, or because the number of your days is great? Have you entered the treasury of snow? Or have you seen the treasury of hail, which I have reserved for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war? By what way is light diffused, or the east wind scattered over the earth? Who has divided a channel for the overflowing water, or path for the thunderbolt, to cause it to rain on a land where there is no one, a wilderness in which there is no man, to satisfy the desolate waste and cause to spring forth the growth of tender grass? Has the rain a father, or who has begotten the drops of dew, from whose womb comes the ice, and the frost of heaven, who gives it birth? The waters harden like stone, and the surfaces of the deep is frozen. Can you bind the cluster of Pisides, or loose the belt of Orion? Can you bring out Massereth in its season, or can you guide the great bear with its cubs? Do you know the ordinances of the heavens? Can you set their dominion over the earth? Can you lift up your voice to the clouds, that an abundance of water may cover you? Can you send out lightnings that they may go and say to you, here we are? Who has put wisdom in the mind, or who has given understanding to the heart? Who can number the clouds by wisdom, or who can pour out the bottles of heaven when the dust hardens in clumps and the clods cling together? Can you hunt the prey for the lion, or satisfy the appetite of the young lions when they crunch in their dens, or lurk in their lairs to lie in wait? Who provides food for the raven when its young ones cry to God and wander about for lack of food? And then it goes on in chapter, can you take that, Mason? In chapter 39, it goes on and talks about the amazing animals that God has created. God is talking about, they're just so unique and so amazing, each animal. Let's look at Romans 1:20. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his external power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. We've talked about his creation, how magnificent all of these things are. But I want to talk about one of his invisible attributes, and that is love. I want to conclude with his love. How can the omnipotent God, the one that has created all of this, who can even say that the nations are but a drop in the bucket to him as the dust on the scales, that he loved us, his creation, so much that he gave the best.
Yes. Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
He calls us joint heirs with Christ. He calls us children, and we call him Father.
Yes. Right.
How amazing is that?
Unreal. Yeah.
I mean, how important and special are we to God? In Isaiah 43, it talks about that we are special to him. He calls us special.
He does.
We can't comprehend his love. But the purpose that we were created for was to fellowship with him, wasn't it?
That's why he made us.
That's our purpose. To walk and talk and fellowship with him. That is our purpose. I want to go back to creation real fast here. And we've covered most of this thing. You know, these things. God's created the heavens and the earth, the seas, the grass and plant life, the stars the next day, the sun and the moon, the sea creatures and birds, the animal life. Then he put the icing on the cake, didn't he? After he created all those things. He usually saves the best for last, doesn't he?
That's right.
He created us. In Genesis 1:26 it says, he said, let us make man in our image. Okay. He chose us and made us in his image.
Yeah, awesome.
How awesome is that?
Yeah.
It says, according to our likeness, let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. He created this beautiful world for us.
Sure did.
For us.
Sure did.
But we know after man came into sin, it broke the fellowship with God. But what great love he showed to redeem us, the price he paid for redemption, his only son. May we never forget.
Never.
You know, when 9/11 happened and you saw the plane go into the tower the first time, it just was, it was just so devastating, so shocking. Then you saw it again, you saw it again, you saw it again, you saw it again. And each time you saw it, there was a little less shock or what's a good word for that?
Apathy.
Yeah.
You just become sort of
And
Desensitized.
yeah, we became almost desensitized because we knew what was going to happen. And but let's never be that way. Let's never become desensitized to the pain that he bore for us, the price he paid for us. You know, I think about this a lot, and I don't know if anybody else does or not, but you know, we all talk about how he suffered when he was crucified, how horrible, horrific it was. But do you think very much about how he suffered before the crucifixion? Have you ever thought about, have you ever been lied on?
Yes.
He was. Have you ever been falsely accused? He was. Have you ever been misunderstood? He was. Have you ever been really hated by someone? He was. Have you ever been betrayed? He was. Have you ever needed someone to pray with you when your heart was so broken and heavy, but yet you were alone?
Right.
He was in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Right, it was.
And so much more. I mean, before the cross.
That's right.
The price he paid for us was more than the cross itself. It was the way to the cross he suffered too. But what great love after God created all of this for our fellowship. Sin broke the fellowship. Then to restore the fellowship, he gave his son, his best. We are valuable to him.
We are.
And you know, when you know your value, you don't have to try to prove it, do you?
That's right. Amen.
I want you to know your value tonight. I want you to know how much he loved you, how important that you are to him, and your purpose is to fellowship with him. Don't get your mind so much on the heaviness of this world, because it's a downward pull. But constantly take those breaks and be reminded of his greatness, his omnipotence. And remember that you are more to him than just a drop in the bucket.
Amen.
God bless you.
Amen.
Yes, so much.